What's going on, everybody? You know who it is, djwoopig. I am here at the Crown Entertainment headquarters. We're getting ready to do a Showtime, but before we get started, I do want to let you know that today's video sponsor is automateyourdjep.com. Now, DJ Event Planner, a lot of you guys, especially in the DJ world, use this, but it can also be valuable to people that have photo booths, multi-op DJ companies, photographers. It doesn't matter. I think a lot of people can get something out of the automation system that Eric Massengale, the owner and founder, provides. I was using Automate Your DJ Event Planner well before he even reached out to me to sponsor some videos, and it's an unbelievable tool that will help you maximize your time, especially if you are a single or a multi-op guy. It's going to allow you to maximize your time, set up some automation stuff that can keep your business funnel running while you're not paying attention to it. Even in the pandemic that we're still under, which is surprising, even under the pandemic circumstances, we've been able to book more shows without having a lot of hands-on contact, and it's all because of Automate Your DJ Event Planner. To get signed up, it's super simple. Only thing you got to do is visit the show notes down below. There'll be a link over there that will let Eric know that I sent you over there, and you're going to get a lot of great useful things for your automation on your DJ Event Planner. And if big companies like, Bun DJ Company, owned by Joe Bunn, or SE Event Group, owned by Jason Janai, two of the biggest names in the wedding or event DJ industry, if they're using it, and they trust it, trust me, I believe that you can get something out of it too. So once again, link in the description in the show notes below, and yeah, Automate Your DJ EP. Thanks for sponsoring this video. Now, just a little bit of background about today's episode. I know it's been a couple months since we did our first episode with Kel Conrad. It's still a wealth of information if you want to go back and look at that after you watch this video. Me and Christian actually recorded this right when the pandemic started, probably a month or so after everything was completely shut down, and I had a little bit of technical difficulty. My Mac just crapped out on me, and I had to get a new computer. The file was on that old computer. I really wanted to get that file back without having to ask Christian to reshoot the thing. So it's been a little bit of time, but all of the stuff that we talk about is still relevant because the pandemic is still going on. You'll hear us talk about things getting back to normal in fall, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case right now either. So it's just crazy to see how different things are when we were talking and today's current time, which is coming up to the 1st of September at the end of August. But Christian Jackson, he really doesn't need an introduction. He's a young guy who's out there killing it. I'm happy to call him friend. He's a wealth of information, and everybody wants to be Christian Jackson, especially young lighting designers. They have somebody that they can look up to who isn't a grumpy old man who's he's in his mid-20s, and he's out there killing it. It just goes to show you that if you work hard, you can do anything. So without further ado, everybody welcome Christian Jackson. What's going on, guys? You know who it is, djwoopig, also known as John Simmons, and today we've got a super special guest in the studio, or all the way across the country. A lot of you guys know him. He's at 90,000 subs on YouTube. In the
almost.
Yeah, I mean, you get to you're like 300 away. I just
round up.
It might be at 90K before this video goes live, so I'll go ahead and give it to you. But
thanks,
everybody, ladies and gentlemen, Christian Jackson, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I'm glad. I'm glad our schedules were able to link up with all the downtime we've got going on right now. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. We were kind of talking before we got started, and it doesn't matter whether you're in middle of America, small town Central Arkansas, or if you're in a major hub like Seattle. Everyone in the business right now is kind of sitting still. And Christian, it's that way for you too?
Yeah, for the most part. I've kind of retooled my business model for what's happening right now, since I know we spoke a little bit before this, but 2020 for many of us, and me especially, I know firsthand, was supposed to be my biggest, most profitable. Yep. It was like, okay, I've been spending the past like 10, 12, 15 years just kind of like investing and reinvesting and getting the ball rolling. and it's like, okay, you're finally getting kind of close to the point where you can coast for a little bit and enjoy everything that you've built up, and then the
Just
rug got kind of like
stops.
ripped out from under us.
I equate it to the guy pushing the ball up the hill, and you're like right at the peak.
Yeah.
And then coronavirus came, and that ball just started coming back down, and we're
Yep.
back to nothing. Everyone is equals at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see. I think it's like one of those Warren Buffett quotes. When the tide goes out, you can see who is skinny dipping.
Oh yeah,
And that's definitely been true to see. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people are in the position where I've seen friends and colleagues having to sell off equipment to maintain payroll or just not go underwater. And it's just been interesting to see how everybody is dealing with it, not only financially but personally. I know I've seen a lot of people who and no shade towards anybody who just kind of wants to like lay back and ride things out. And then there's kind of two sides to that. There's the people who want to seize this as an opportunity to chill out for a bit, and then there's the people who retool their entire workflow and what they're focusing on. And unfortunately, I decided to go for that. And
I think
it's been a lot of work for it's like restarting. Like
yeah,
I had to reinvest in a whole different set of gear, and I haven't seen anything from it yet. But
right.
hopefully
And
it'll turn around.
yeah, we'll talk about that as we kind of wrap up, kind of what you're doing and what your next steps are. Everybody sees you on the internet as the EDM lighting guy that's doing shows for 20-30,000 people, going on tour with Zomboy and others. And but I want to talk about because we're similar in age, and I would I'm not going to compare successes, because I think if we take it both individually, I think both of us would say that we've done pretty well for ourselves with how young we are.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the Christian Jackson that started in Bozeman, Montana. Let's talk about that guy for a little bit, and just talk about the steps of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, Bozeman's close. It's in I started in Billings, which is that all the B word, there's Butte, Bozeman, Billings. They're all on that
all
little
together.
Stretch of I-90, that stretch of interstate. And so I grew up in Billings, which was the it's funny to say it's the most populous city in Montana. That's
wow. How many? What's the population?
It's 100,000, or it was about 100,000 when I was growing up there. So not a small town by any means.
It's super similar to my market. So Little Rock, I'm 20 minutes out from Little Rock, 100,000 people. I live in a little town. It's 30,000 people, and people consider it a pretty good sized city for the state. So yeah.
So you understand kind of the dynamics of what kind of market I was working with, because I mean it's probably a very similar market if I were to.
I would probably say so. In order to do a gig of any substance, you're driving 100%. Yep. I mean, you got to drive to the cities. We've got 3 big cities, I would say, in Arkansas: Little Rock, Fayetteville, Jonesboro. Little Rock, I'm lucky enough to be right up the road. Fayetteville and Jonesboro, it's a 3 or 4 hour drive. It's just that's how it is.
Yeah.
So you got started with the DJ stuff, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that was the first kind of foray into production. It started off very slow. I was actually looking through some old photos from my old hard drives and old computers, like way back when, just to kind of go down memory lane for a little bit. And it's funny to see how it progressed. Started off essentially as me wanting to be like I was the super nerdy kid in high school and middle school. Didn't really have a whole lot of close friends, and I wanted to develop this this school dance company, basically, after I had been to a couple of they were student council, like statewide conferences, and they had a DJ there who, at the time, I had no idea what any of this stuff was, but he had like the triple CD player, and he had the 19-inch rack mount rolling thing, and projection screens and lasers and fog machines. It's really like cheesy looking, like thinking back about it now, but that was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. They had truss in the air and scanners and everything like that. And I was like, man, why is there nothing like that where I'm growing up?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was something that I could put together, because it didn't seem like it was too complex. It didn't seem like it was out of reach, and that it was something that was needed in the market.
For sure.
But I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know where to start. So before Facebook groups, like now Facebook groups, that's where you
You can do
do
whatever.
all the
Yeah, you
question
can
and
find
answer.
everything.
That's,
Yeah.
you can buy stuff like that. Didn't exist back when I was starting out. It was all on online forums.
Right.
So, you would have to go to these various different forums. I can't remember the DJ forum that I used to go onto, but I'm sure I could go back there and find some old posts.
I know
Where,
DJ chat was popular for the
DJ chat.
longest. Yeah, there we
Yes.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. So before Facebook groups, forums like DJ chat where everybody would go to talk about, okay, well, why should you buy EV versus QSC
Right.
or anything like that. There weren't any like YouTube videos out
Those
there. There
chats are
weren't.
still going on in Facebook groups today.
Yes. Yeah. So it's the same arguments, different venue.
Exactly
And
right.
it's crazy how accessible it is to get this information now just through Facebook groups. But yeah, I saw that this was like a cool thing that I wanted to bring to Billings, because I thought that it would help make me a cool person. First of all, I was like,
Sure.
man, wouldn't it be cool if like I was the guy who, brought all this cool,
Was
awesome
in
stuff
control.
to, yeah, exactly, and be the one who made everybody else have a fun time.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started the journey on buying equipment and basically starting a small business
Yeah.
in Billings. And
So
that's
were
what I
you
did
in?
for like 4 or 5 years in Billings when I was in middle school and high school.
Okay,
That's when I
cool.
left for college.
That was my question. Did this start in high school, middle school, that area, and then
Yep.
just kind of
Tail end of
progressed
middle
up?
school. So I would have been like, what, 14 years old,
Okay.
15 years old. So when I started like actually buying gear and throwing shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you're in Seattle now, and
Mhm.
looking back at your YouTube channel, I probably, in my office, there's a TV directly across from me, and
Yeah.
most of the time it's Christian Jackson live streams, because it's something I can listen to in the background and just kind of pick up
Yeah.
random information, and I put it on a playlist. And I saw where you did an event in an airplane hangar or something. Maybe you did something for like a charity for a kid that was sick or something
Yeah.
like that. I remember, and you were pretty young at that time, but you still had a pretty decent rig, like.
Yeah.
Even in comparison to stuff today, it was still pretty okay at the time.
Hmm.
So your goal while you were in high school, middle school, you're trying to save up and throw parties, and
Yep.
save up, get some more gear, and then go from there.
Exactly. Yeah. Like as soon as I reached my senior year in high school, I was starting to throw my own shows instead
Okay.
of like doing shows for other people. And I had a small team of students from like every high school who would help me promote, and I would pay them to help do all that. And I'd hire a security team, hire out the venue, and do all of the things that a promoter would do for
Yeah.
throwing a show. And that was really a big help in getting a lot of money to buy this equipment. I would say almost probably 70% of that equipment was purchased with money that I earned from throwing my own shows
Nice.
in Billings. And so by the time I graduated from high school and moved off to college in a town like 6 hours away ish, I had the truck, the trailer, 12-foot trailer completely full to the ceiling of lighting, DJ, truss, any sort of gear I would need to throw like a 400-person show comfortably. And I had all of it. I didn't need to go to anybody to subcontract anything. And it was weird going to college with all that gear because it was a much smaller market, and I had never been in a situation where venues existed for the group of people that I was trying to market to.
Gotcha.
So
and
in
this
Billings,
is the EDM crowd, right?
Yeah. This was like the bar, club, EDM. This was like, right at, I guess, the peak of like bro EDM, where everybody was going out and listening to, 128 BPM, electro house and big room house.
Right.
And so when I got to Missoula, where I went to college, actually things kind of hit the brakes really hard because I had never been around like a market where people didn't have as much disposable income like college kids.
Mhm.
So they just want to go to the bar. They just want to, go to a place that has no cover charge. And there was no real way for me to sell my services there.
Yeah.
So I was sitting around with a bunch of gear in a trailer that maybe did 2 shows a month or something like that. And it paid for itself, like it sustained, but there was no way for me to grow there.
Yeah. So once I watched your video with Gary Ford. Great interview,
Yep.
by the way. So you decided you were done with college. It's not for me. How many years did you get done, and what
Like
was the tipping point?
I got a year and a half through college, and I was just doing really poor with it, really poorly in general. Was getting like, average GPA in the 2.0 range.
Yeah. You're
just,
creative. I feel like all creatives
yeah.
get stuck behind 4 walls, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I sometimes hear that argument, like, if you all people who were successful didn't like college. They always like refer to the big names of people who like, oh well, this person dropped out of college and look what they went on to do.
Right.
And I don't like to fall into that trap of like thinking, oh, just because I dropped out of college, that must mean that I needed to express my creativity in some other way.
Right.
So I feel it's kind of like a get out of jail free card for all the people who it's like
done well for themselves. Yeah,
exactly. They see it and they're like, oh, I didn't need college at all. And so I think it's more like just a random like luck type thing that I was able to refocus my energy into stuff, because at the time, like in college, I was fortunate enough that my parents were able to pay for a bit of my college. And after they saw that I was getting the grades that I was getting, they're like, no, you're paying for your own college going forward from here. And it was at that point where I was looking at paying the bill.
Isn't in the plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, suddenly college ain't in the plans anymore. So I stayed in Missoula for like about another year after I stopped attending classes. And that was like kind of my limbo period where I was like, okay, either I go full bore trying to, retool what I'm doing in college and have my own business here, either as, a DJ, or move out to a major market, and the closest major market was Seattle.
Gotcha.
And I decided to do that.
Now, did you have how were your parents with the decision to move? Were they cool with it? Just
they're fine. They're totally trusting of my decisions. They always have been. So there's no issue with that.
How much of an adjustment was it going from a small market to a major market, and just finding work and finding people that you could relate to and hang out with and kind of settle in? How long did that take?
I was lucky in that one of my good friends, Jason Wu, he's a photographer out here. He actually moved back to Montana recently, but he moved out here about 6 months before I wanted to move out to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And so he really spearheaded everything with the connections that I was able to get, because I was good friends with him, and he had recently gotten a job at Q nightclub, which is where I kind of came up out here. And he spearheaded the moving effort, and he said things were going well, and he wanted me to sit down and have a meeting with the creative director of the nightclub at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I mean, maybe this could be the opportunity, this could be the shot. And I ended up moving out there with basically no guaranteed job. And the interview went well, I guess. And I convinced them to let me basically be the lighting guy for this nightclub, since they had some people there who didn't really know what they were doing, I guess. I don't know how that happened or how that came to be, but that was basically it. I moved out to Seattle after following my friend's footsteps. He gave me a couple connections. And then from there, basically I spent all of the nights that the nightclub was open, I was there. And or as much as they would schedule me, until I kind of took over the role of scheduling all the tech stuff. Then I was there pretty much every night during the nights, and then during the daytime I would go and do like corporate gigs as a stagehand.
So when you were when you moved out there and started the process of working for Q, was there a specific thing that you looked forward to doing? Was it you know, because I'm assuming Q is a nightclub that has like headline DJs come in. I think I've seen some
Yep.
stuff, which is odd for because that it just doesn't happen in my market. Probably wouldn't
Yeah.
happen in Montana either.
No.
But was there something particular that you wanted to focus your attention on? Was it always the lighting, or was it more of the of kind of teching the DJ setup, or how did that
Yeah,
work?
it was a little bit of both, and I still love the tech side of DJ gear and
Mhm.
setting everything up and doing all that. Like I love that. It's very fun and kind of therapeutic to me,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, but once I started uh, seeing what was possible with lighting that I had always wanted to do, but didn't really have the tools or the knowledge for doing it. Um, that was it was very interesting to be able to go to these bigger shows and help out on these bigger shows and see what was actually possible from a production standpoint. And that was kind of the point where I said, yeah, that I want to focus all my energy on doing lighting.
Gotcha. And you also said you work for the local stagehand union, which is a great way to get started. I think.
Yeah, I wasn't a part of the union, but there were a couple of independent labor companies out here
Okay.
who, they have contracts with all of the major tech companies. So contracts with Amazon, contracts with the convention center, big companies who come in annually and do big conferences here.
Right.
Well, used to at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, there'd just be a need for 150 guys in all black who know how to bolt truss together.
Yeah.
And I was one of the guys who knew how to bolt truss together. So
Nice.
yeah.
Uh,
And then you meet people,
yep.
you just shoot the shit during your break and then talk about what you're wanting to do. And then I've discovered that during that whole process of doing the stagehand gigs and like bringing my own lunch to the convention center and working like 12 14-hour days,
For
that
$100.
there yeah, exactly. It's a little better than that in Seattle. Like,
Okay.
as a stagehand, you could make, between 20 and 25 an hour.
Nice. Very
So
cool.
it's really actually pretty decent. That's like corporate rates. If you're doing rock and roll, you might be in the 15 to 20
Right.
an hour. But, my apartment at the time also cost, over $1,000 for my one bedroom,
Wow. My
my one
goodness.
bedroom section.
All right. I'm getting the phone.
So it all balances out. It all balances out.
So you moved to Seattle. You start working at the nightclub. You start working as a laborer for shows and events. What makes the transition to working for a production company? Did you, I guess, like you said, shooting the breeze with people in the hallway, making connections, finding connections, and now you're working for a production house. Did you come in as as an L1, L2, or were you a case pusher? Or?
So in conjunction, these things kind of happened at the same time where I came to work for Q, came to Seattle to do the stagehand side work, and then also started working as a freelancer for R90 Lighting, which is the company I think you're referencing.
Yeah.
I haven't really worked specifically like as an employee for any like real production company. I've always just been like solo guy.
Yeah.
Which is how I prefer to operate. I'm sure you're probably pretty similar in that. At least from what I've seen and watching your videos, you're a very self-sufficient person.
Correct.
And
Being your own boss is the shit, man. Nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody can tell you.
Yeah. I think I've possibly I've thought a long hard time about maybe what more I could do if I were to partner with people.
Mm-hmm.
But every time that's been an opportunity, I've decided to not do it.
Yeah.
And I think so far it's been a good thing. And So anyways, back to your question. Those three things kind of happened at the same time, and I neglected to mention it, but yeah, R90 Lighting, I started doing freelance work for them as a tech, like purely a tech, and nobody had anything like Grand MA2 related as far as like show programming.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was learning that pretty much on my own because I slowly started to discover that every big show that was coming through that I was like helping out as a stagehand, like I would always like stay afterwards and during my break, I would like go out to front of house and just kind of like be that annoying housefly, like
Same.
hovering around.
Yep.
And, you know, just like listening to the touring crew come through and like listen to them talk and I try my hardest to not be annoying.
You should try to
And,
pick up
and
stuff.
bug them. Yeah, just try, exactly.
Yeah, whenever I did
Exactly.
stagehand stuff, it was the same. You know, once they sent us on break, I'm hanging out in the arena, just kind of looking
Yep.
and watching, and you know, because they're working with millions of dollars worth of equipment that I will never, you know, or at least not in the current sense. I'm not going to have the opportunity to work with it. So if nothing
Yep.
else, why not listen to conversation and hope that I can pick something up that I can take back and apply it to my own situation.
Exactly. And, you know, it's through that sort of attitude of just always trying to hang around and listen in on conversations and just being there and being present in those type of environments. I was like, okay, if I want to do what these guys are doing, which is what I want to do, I really need to learn Grand MA too, because like every single festival, every single one-off show that was coming through with the type of acts that I wanted to work with was using Grand MA too. And I was like, okay, I really need to invest the time into learning this. And that was kind of when I started spending all of my free time, like 100% of my free time, learning how to use the software and practicing with it. Because thankfully, that Q nightclub had a piece of MA2 hardware. There's a small one, just like a little touchscreen computer with a command wing. But
that's better.
That was like, yeah, and that's where I got the practice in for what I was teaching myself on my free time.
So you were going to the nightclub and messing with the visual or messing with the program there, not solely just doing it from your apartment or whatever.
Yep, 100%.
Gotcha. So how long were you working as an independent contractor, either for R90? Is that the name?
Yeah. So that was like kind of the phase where I was doing a ton of local gigs, like probably 6 days a week. You know, I would have 1 or 2 gigs every day. Nightclub at night, and then some random gig during the day.
Yeah.
And that period of time lasted for probably 3 years, where I was doing nothing but making connections, learning MA2 in my own free time, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And I guess at a point in time, it got to where something eventually had to give.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it was less like, you know, something had to give, and it was more like everything kind of fell together. So it was like, you know, the knowledge of DJ equipment, the networking that I had built up from working at the nightclub and meeting various tour managers or working with people in different promotion companies, and then learning MA2 in my free time, and then all of the like hands-on experience that I learned from working with R90 and the various labor companies that I worked for up in Seattle. So like all of this stuff kind of like culminated into, okay, I'm finally in a position where I can, you know, start touring and be worth more than I cost.
There you go.
It's like that's like the main thing that people need to understand with these gigs is, you know, a lot of times it's people hire who they know and who they know will be a net positive, right? They don't just go hire random people. They need to have some sort of assurance that, you know, their name isn't going to be tarnished by hiring you, and that you're going to do the job that you're hired for, and you're going to be more valuable than what you cost. Because if you go and you fuck something up on a show and you ruin the whole load in, and you have to extend the labor bill by $2,000 to get the show up and running, okay, yeah, maybe, you know, you got the gig, but you cost your employer more than what you know they saved by hiring you. So it's just you know, it took a while to understand what I knew and what I didn't know, and that's probably the hardest part, I think, is, you know, estimating your own skills.
Gotcha. And you've been touring what, 2 or 3 years now, or longer?
About 3 years.
About 3 years. Yeah. I know you've worked with Zomboy and Louis the Child. What are some other acts that you've been out with?
Those are my 2 main ones right now. I started with Anjuna Beats. They're like a trance record label. That was like my first tour, and it was kind of unfair because it was a really bougie tour. Like, it was all fly dates.
Oh,
I didn't have to be on a bus. I didn't have to load in.
You don't have your own cot.
Yeah. So that was like kind of a flowery introduction to the world of touring, since it was rather relaxed, and there was no time code to worry about. There was no complexities. It was a DJ show
Yeah.
with like 3 or 4 acts every night, and we would just take the weekend. It's basically like taking the weekend off to go to a different city and go press some buttons in a different venue every night.
Come back, do your business, and at the time,
Yeah.
you probably still had a bunch of, I was looking back at some of your videos a week or two ago, and you were still, you'd be out on the road on the weekend, and then you'd come back and pick up rentals, and still had business to take care of with the club, and then come Thursday, you're flying back out.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it was there. I mean, I'm kind of glad that all this stuff happened right now, because it's given me a chance to like recalibrate exactly what I want to do, and it's given me an opportunity to build up some some systems so that I can automate a lot of what I used to have to come back into town to do.
Right.
Because like you said, I would come back after doing gigs all weekend, and then it's like I got to head to the shop as soon as my flight lands so that I can go prep rentals that are coming to pick up for their shows that week. And just getting it's almost been a hindrance because I like having the gear and I like renting it out, because it's all paid for itself at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's basically easy money. So it's tough for me to want to get away from that. But at the same time, I realize that even though the amount of time it sucks away from my life is maybe like 2 or 3 hours a week,
right,
it's starting to add up. And in a time where like I really want to be investing in learning some more unique software to increase my value to people and artists in the future who might want to hire me, all that stuff adds up.
It all adds up. Now, back to touring. Do you prefer being on the road? Are you a road pirate, or do you seem like you're one that likes to stay around the house? I don't know why I get that vibe.
It's hard to leave. It's hard to leave.
Yeah, you got, and that's what I tell everybody with my office. Like, all of my shit is here. I enjoy being here. How does it work out for you? Do you enjoy the tour side more than working working in the warehouse for another company?
Yeah, I like both sides to it. I like being home in my own bed every night.
Yep.
But there's something to be said about having all of the free travel that you can really take.
Yeah.
But at the same token, like I want to do a video about this, is like, the pros and cons of doing bus tours versus like flight aids versus staying at home. It's really like, there's no, it's like when I don't know if you're into automotive stuff or not, but it's like, fast, cheap. What is the triangle? What's the triangle that the perfect triangle you can never have? It's like
fast, cheap, reliable.
Yeah, fast, cheap, reliable. It's the same sort of deal with choosing, picking your poison when it comes to touring. It's like, do you want a lot of time at home? Do you want to see the world, or do you want to make a lot of money? Like, you can't have all three at the same time.
Gotcha.
Or at least that's traditionally how it is.
All right. So getting into like your actual job, I did want to ask you a question about video and lighting. In the past couple of years, it really seems like those two have really merged. Do you see yourself, working more with video in the future? I know you're doing some stuff with video now, but do you always see yourself as doing lighting alongside with video?
So the last couple of tours that I've done with Lewis the Child, the last 2 tours I've done, I was also triggering video. I wasn't like running video since it's a completely time-coded show. I've definitely spent the last year or so getting a really good handle on Resolume, which is good for festival type stuff. It's good for run and gun, good for busking, but the real thing I need to focus on is how to get really creative with the video products that, like you said, are kind of merging together. Like Martin has a lot of video products that are basically lighting fixtures as well. Yeah. And integrating those two is going to be really important for anybody who wants to get bigger contracts, cooler shows, and be a person who knows how to integrate all of those things. Yeah. So I'm at a good level with Resolume and MA and getting everything to speak to each other. But there are some specific softwares out there that I really need to spend a little more time with, primarily Touch Designer. Touch Designer and Notch, those are the two things that anybody who's interested in, production design really needs to have a firm understanding of, because that's the software that allows you to bridge those two things.
Gotcha.
To allow you to have interactivity between lighting and video so that they're not two different dudes just mashing buttons, and you can actually have a cohesive show.
Does that necessarily take away from a person being out on the road? I mean, now have you essentially taken somebody's job by doing both of those things?
I suppose so. Technically, yeah. I mean, technically, I am one person instead of two, but I don't know if it doesn't negatively impact the show. In fact, I think sometimes if you have one person who has a more complete knowledge of everything,
it makes it
it's
easy.
it's like removing one moving part from a machine. You make it a little bit less prone to failure if you have someone who is intimately involved with the programming and build of both sides of the coin.
Makes it more efficient for sure.
Yeah, and I think sorry, there's a truck backing up outside. I don't know if you can hear it. It's been the bane of my existence during my live streams recently. We recently moved apartments from like the same complex, so we're still in the same complex.
Okay.
And the apartment we were in originally was the most serene, the most like peaceful, quiet, beautiful view.
Right.
And we wanted to expand a little bit because I got more shit.
You got more stuff.
The girlfriend didn't want me having it all in the living room, so we went and got a bigger apartment. Yeah, super lame. But they don't exactly allow you to test drive apartments for a week at a time before you sign on the dotted line. And the noise on this apartment
at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
That's kind of me and my wife. We moved about an hour closer to the city because she works at a hospital, and I can really work from anywhere. And we came and looked at a house, and it was perfect. And we touring the house, no problems. We go to move stuff in, and then we realize, it's a brand new town. We're not really used to the town. We didn't drive around a bunch. And there's a train track literally 30 yards behind the bush of our house. Eventually it gets to where you can't hear it anymore, but for a while it was terrible.
Yeah, that's rough.
All right, so moving down my little list here. Again, I'm trying to keep your time to a minimum. I'm interested to hear, Christians, what are your favorite fixtures right now that you like working with? Is there something in particular? Or?
We've been putting mega points on almost everything. They finally, for a while when they first came out, they were a huge hit, and I got to play with a couple as demos. I got to use some on festival rigs, but for pretty much the first year, they were almost unattainable because the production capacity of Robe at the time was such that there was a back order list for like almost a year, if I recall correctly. So everybody wanted them. All of the big production companies bought a lot of them and made it so that there were only a few large companies that really had a big selection of them in the United States. Overseas is kind of a different story. It's very weird because overseas it seems like there are a lot of smaller companies that have really expensive gear. I'm not exactly sure what I'd love to talk to somebody who actually operates one of these smaller companies over in Europe, but in the US there's just like these massive, PRGs, Christie lights, Four Walls. Yeah, exactly. They just buy up a ton of this gear, and we're just now getting to the point where a lot of the smaller companies are able to purchase mega points, and they're showing up as an actual fixture on a lot of the smaller shows. And the versatility of it, I think we used 12 of them on the last Louis the Child tour as like the main aerial projection fixture. And it was, they're just incredible. Like the output and the speed in the size is crazy. But I'm really excited.
From what I've never messed with them, but from what I've been told, the optics it's hard to beat. Yeah,
the effects and the optics, everything's razor sharp. And it's the only negative thing that I don't like about it is the red that you get when you use the color mix.
Gotcha.
So like the color wheel red is fine. It's just like every other color wheel red. But when you try to make a saturated deep red, it's really just orange. Like you
Gotcha.
can't actually get a saturated red out of the color mix engine. But other than that, there's a couple of new Irritant fixtures that are coming out, or that have already come out. They're interesting because Irritant has traditionally been more of like an effects type unit company. Like they made all sorts of crazy pixel mapping stuff, the dream panels, all that sort of stuff that is more used as like a creative eye candy type fixture. But now they've ramped up their production overseas, and they've started making some insane, like really high quality, or at least high output, high performance, huge moving fixtures.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty crazy to see, because they didn't have any discharge fixtures previously, and they've stuck with that mantra. They've only had LED engine fixtures, but I haven't had a chance to play with them because all this stuff hit, and I haven't had a chance to. I wanted to go check some out because there was supposed to be some demos going down with their new product line, but I haven't had a chance to yet.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on some of the new Elation stuff, the Artiste line? Have you? I know you've worked with some of it. What's your thoughts? Are you happy or?
So Joe Cole out here, he's the guy who owns R90 Lighting. He has a massive Elation stock. Recently started buying some Mega Points and some GLP stuff too. But the Elation always is going to have like a special place in my heart,
right?
Because like those are my first real lights that I bought. I guess unless you consider like the Martin Mania SCX 700 scanner.
We'll count it.
Yeah, I mean it's still like more of a DJ grade thing, and not. I don't mean that in a negative connotation at all. But like, Martin had their, and they still do, except now it's called the Rush series instead.
Yeah,
instead of like the Martin. Yeah, so like they still have those delineations, just like, I mean, every company has it now. ADJ versus and exactly. Chauvet Professional.
Chauvet Professional,
yeah.
Speaking of Chauvet Professional, they have really come a long way in the past 3 years with their Maverick stuff. Their Rogue stuff is especially.
I love the Rogue stuff.
Here in Arkansas, where you don't have, it's not a huge enough market to where, we've got people coming in, demanding Robe and Clay Packy and, the big industry kind of touring standard fixtures. Chauvet has really filled the void on the professional side. They're fantastic fixtures. They
kill it. Like the bang for the buck you get, especially like, I remember I was like really suspicious about the Rogue series until I started showing up in venues and I started seeing all Rogue rigs. So you'd have like literally the whole range of like, I think it's an R2X spotter. All of those with like probably 40 R1s in the rig. And in like their 5-zone pixel mode. Like I was actually blown away by how bright and how quick all that stuff is.
They are in comparison.
Yeah, because I had a bad taste in my mouth from the Legend series.
Oh boy, I still have some Legend series in my inventory.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think I saw. What do you have? The Legend Beam, or what is it?
I've got the 412s and then the 575 discharge fixtures.
Yeah,
and for me, and I'll be the first one to tell anybody. What I have is not the best, but 9 times out of 10, I'm working with these smaller, B, C list artists. They're not bringing an LD, so it's what can I make that's cool, and that doesn't cost me a lot of money, and it works out okay-ish.
Yeah.
But the Rogue stuff is definitely what I plan to move into, just because a lot of people here have it. I can rent it and it still match, a rig that I already have, or I can rent it to other people. It just, and that's with the MA talk. You went MA because it was what was in your market and what, you saw the most of. It's not the same situation here. So you've got to just kind of work with what's in your market. But if you want to be a touring guy, or if you want to go move to a larger market, you need to take into account that you need to work with the tools that you have available to you.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's talking to my viewers, not obviously talking to you.
Yeah, I say the same thing to my guys as well. It's like that. I always say, like, you should learn. There's 2 lighting consoles that you should learn. One is MA, and then the second one is the one that's going to make you money in your local market.
In your area. Yep.
Exactly. So you
Okay.
have to like do that little bit of, I've already done half of the research. Okay. The first half is you need to learn MA. The second half, you need to figure out in your local region,
What works for you?
what's the console that you can learn that is going to be valuable for other people to hire you, where you can be their go-to guy.
Yeah.
Because you need to be like the first person that they think of when they need someone to operate a show or to
Yep.
program a show.
That's how you get paid. That's how you increase your pay, at least.
Yep.
Now, working overseas, how is the language barrier? I know you've done some stuff in China
usually
and
fine.
in Europe. Is it okay?
Yeah. Part of like it depends on the scale of show you're doing too. And I would say typically in Asian countries, you're actually more likely to have someone dedicated as a translator.
Gotcha.
Who might not even be a technical person. In Europe, typically, since English is a fairly common second language for everybody there, there's usually no dedicated translator or anybody who's there to assist you. And the nice thing about, it's funny. The nice thing about learning these console languages is you almost don't even need to have.
You don't need anybody. Yeah.
You don't need to have like a common language between someone else, because lighting around the world all speaks the same language and it all works pretty much the same 99% of the time.
Sure.
So if you're having issues, you can generally kind of like I've had to like point out on a screen that like the ArtNet was configured incorrectly or something like that. Be like, look at those lights, like they're not, and I'd spin the dial and be like, not working, something's wrong. DMX isn't connected. Can you please go do it? But a lot of times, like in the Philippines, we had like dedicated translators, just because people didn't really speak English there at all. Right. And I'm a very uncultured person, and I don't know any other languages. Except, I mean, a little German. I can speak a little bit of.
Can't even do
German
that. I can't
get by, but yeah. So in general, it's not an issue. Sometimes it's a part of the production writer. Like now that I've started working for Lewis Child and a couple other big artists as one-offs, it's more common to have a writer that requires things like an English-speaking technician in front of house to help. And it's kind of like one of those copy-paste things that just gets put into all writers. Mm-hmm. But it's usually not something I need to worry about. It's pretty easygoing.
Gotcha. So working, when you're overseas, I know that you have in your rider, like you have to have a legit, genuine grand MA, whatever you're working on. How does it work as far as the fixtures go? Are you, if you show up to an event and, you kind of get what you get, which may be Chinese crap or maybe knockoffs of something. What have you found that works around some of this stuff, technical difficulties and working with fixtures?
Well, thankfully, like one thing I'm really good at is making fixture profiles on the fly.
I've actually sent you an email about a fixture profile. Just throwing that out there.
When did you send that? Did I forget to reply to it?
Well, no, you didn't forget to reply. We had a guy coming down, and I had some generic RGB AW.
Oh, that's right.
IP parse for front wash, and the guy, he really wanted control over them, and I was trying to make it work for him. So we ended up. I've got the Onyx rig, and I just left it for front wash. So I was like, I've got you some handles here. Do what you need to do, because he couldn't. He was new, but I would be lost too if somebody handed me a MA talk and told me to make a fixture profile. So we show went off without a hitch. Everybody got paid, and went home happy. So that's all I can ask.
Hey, that's what matters. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting that there's a lot more stigma behind using knockoff consoles than there is behind using knockoff fixtures. Yeah. They're both seen in a negative light, but it's like but I still don't know of any LD who would show up to a rig overseas and complain that there's knockoff Sharpies or knockoff, pointies or anything like that on the stage. But almost every LD I know would probably refuse to use a fake MA. Yeah. And I don't know.
Go wrong.
It's strange because there's like, there's this invisible line that everybody has kind of created that nobody really has a good explanation for.
Sure.
And for me, for example, when I was doing gigs in Montana, I had my Elation rig, and then I also had a bunch of Chinese beam lights too, because there's no way in hell I could afford to buy even used Sharpies at the time was $4,000, $5,000 a pop.
Yep.
And when I'm making $700 a gig,
right? It just doesn't.
It doesn't. It will never happen. That will never be a reality for me. So I think it's definitely on a case by case basis. I've never been totally screwed by a show with knockoff lights because again, I can create fixture profiles in my sleep.
Gotcha.
But it's those are the shows that are generally the least fun to do.
Yeah.
Just because
it's on the edge all night. Is this going to work when I tell it to go?
And it's not even so much that it's more that you can see when you get into big quantities of things, the little discrepancies between individual units really starts to show up. Sure. For example, I showed up at Skyway Theater in I want to say, I cannot remember which city it's in. Anyways, up north in the US. Mm-hmm. And they had our ground package. This was a fly date on a tour where we already had a ground package, but since it was like a fly date instead of the bus, we had to fly in and get local production. Mm-hmm. And they gave us 2 or 3 different types of beam light instead of just one type.
Yeah.
And on the surface, they look the same, but one half of the fixtures had the color wheel in backwards. Oh, yeah. The other half had a different gobo wheel entirely. And
you can't
when you're nuts about like having a show and like having a time coded show specifically that looks right, it was just it makes it a really bad show experience for the techs involved.
All right, so we probably got another 10 minutes or so. What's the next plan for Christian? Where do you see yourself going here in the next 5, 10, however many years? I know, like for me, touring was always something that I thought would be really awesome. But again, I'm a home guy, and if I can make my own lane where I am now and stay at home and do that, I'm happy. Are you going to stay out on the road, or are you going to find something close to home that you can kind of do creatively? What's the plan?
Yeah, I think right now my plan is to expand a little bit more for probably the next year on what I've been doing already. Mm-hmm. So working directly with artists, building up my network of people that I know and trust, and then using those resources to make it so that I don't have to be at every single show.
Yeah.
And so that I can take on more clients, have a little more creative control, mm-hmm. not in like a literal controlling way, but in a way where I can make sure that the quality that I want for every show is happening multiple times, maybe for different clients during the same time. Because I can only be in one place at once. As much as I would love to have a cloning machine, that only exists in the MA for cloning fixtures.
Right.
I can't actually clone myself yet. I wish, but just not possible. So that's kind of what I need to refocus on. I've traditionally been really bad at like just managing other people and my own like.
As an entrepreneur, I totally get where you're going with this. The hardest thing, especially when I've tried to grow the DJ side of the company, and even on the production side, the hardest thing is getting someone trained, but then releasing the reins and actually letting them do it. I think I can teach somebody, and I enjoy teaching, which is why I make videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But like if it's here at my company and my company's name is on the line, and this is something I've built up, and it's got to go well. The hardest thing for me is letting them go out there and do the job and not sending them 10,000 text messages on how's it going.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. I've had even where like on the last tour I had to have 2 dates filled in by some friends of mine who I trust, and I obviously trust them enough to put them on my own show. but I'm still like, I was still texting like probably every 30 minutes, like, is everything okay?
Everything good? Yeah.
You guys run through this? You do this? You do this? So yeah, sorry for doing that, but yeah,
Well, I
it's,
think people get it. I think people get it.
yeah, it's rough. So I guess that's gonna have to be what I focus on next. It's kind of the next, it's like the logical next step for every lighting guy who goes through the same process that I'm going through, because this is not like, what I'm doing is not an uncommon process. It's just I'm the only one who seems to be really kind of documenting it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
And
So it seems that you're going to be focusing more attention on the actual design instead of being out on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that answers all my questions. Wait, time out. I do have one question. Explain to me the YouTube avatar that people want to know.
Oh yeah. I don't have my coffee mug. I've got a mug that has that name on it or that face on it.
Where did that come from?
This is an ancient collaboration between two friends of mine who don't know anything about each other, which is the best part about this. The avatar originally came from the old meme. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like Gooby Please, or like Goofy Please.
Yep.
So it's that same cartoon style. My friend Ralph Dagza, who I met in Missoula when I was going to school there, he he does this for a lot of his friends, where like he'll create this type of stupid stuff for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even remember why I used it as the avatar for the YouTube channel, but it was something he sent me. You know, it has like Pioneer misspelled on the front of the shirt in red letters, and it's just a stupid cartoon of me. And I just never changed it after that.
Now
so
you
that
can.
kind of became, yeah, that's the thing, is like I really can't now. Even if I were to, and I've been trying to like do some rebranding in the background, and make everything a little shinier and have a little better sheen on it. Even through that process, I'm like, I can't change it. It's like it's too far,
tough, especially with the YouTube crowd, because
yes.
you know, the title of my channel has always been DJ Woopig, and it's unique, but at the same time,
it's great.
You know, when you get older, I would like people just call me John. So I changed my channel name to John, and I dropped probably 500 subscribers in a week.
Yeah,
they're like, who is this guy? This is not.
Yeah, people are sensitive to that.
I know. All right. So we got all the questions answered. What's on the horizon for Christian once we get all back to work? What projects you got going on in the fall? I guess fall is
still working with Louis the Child. Got their new tour design drafted up, ready to go. We were originally thinking about just doing kind of a copy paste of the last tour we did, but now with all this free time we have, we've gone through a couple of redesign iterations, and we have something totally new and fresh for that. I've also been focusing more on doing all this live stream stuff.
Yeah.
So I finally got the equipment all set up and everything kind of set up.
Crispy.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So the next step there is just to kind of branch out from YouTube a little bit, because I don't want to like reach the peak and then just kind of ride that. I would rather kind of invest in some more live streaming stuff like over on Twitch, and then kind of putting a coat of paint over everything to solidify everything that I have going on. Cause it's like, I have like the personal branding, I have like the YouTube type stuff that I'm doing. And then the design work that I want to be able to sell to clients in a professional way. And they don't really match together at this point in time. So I've hired a couple of friends who were previously actually out of work, due to all of this. They're like basically graphic and branding. Branding is what they do in their full-time job usually. And essentially we're going to be spending the next couple of months rolling out a new look and a new brand for what I want to be doing in the future, because I want this to be bigger than just like a Christian Jackson YouTube channel. I want it to be more of a brand, not in the sense of like just throwing a logo on something and trying to make it look cool, but rather having an identity
in the market. For sure.
That is separate.
Very cool. All right. So I did want to mention, and I don't know if this project is going to be happening before this video goes up.
Yeah, we'll
The
see.
ultimate lighting shootout. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
So the quick answer to that is a lot of us in the lighting industry have worked with a lot of old crappy gear from time to time, and we kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. Love in the respect that we remember having fond memories of kind of working with this gear as we were coming up through the ranks, and then a hate relationship being that a lot of this stuff is so old and useless that they're worth more as, you know, boat anchors than anything else. So across the nation there are tons of lighting shops that, you know, are collecting dust on their old equipment that is pretty much unusable, that doesn't go out on shows anymore, is not in demand, or is broken beyond the point of either repair or, you know, investing any money to clean it up. They're just basically worthless. But people like us, we cannot seem to get rid of our gear hardly ever. It's tough. It's tough when you've invested money in something and
it's worth nothing.
And it's worth basically nothing, and it's taking up space, but you just can't quite bring yourself to get rid of it, either because it costs money to get rid of or recycle, or just takes too much effort. So we reached out to a couple of our friends who run various lighting shops around the country and got a donation pool. I think we're sitting at almost like 75 fixtures right now.
Nice.
We're going to be taking them out to the middle of Oklahoma, undisclosed location. And we
Good
have
times
a.
At that place. Have you been there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, of course. We did rehearsals there for like almost a week and a half for the first Lewis the Child tour. And
were y'all at
Toucan? Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So Toucan's donating a couple of lights as well. Some really ancient Roby color spot 250 ATs, I think.
Yeah.
And we're taking a bunch of this gear out into the middle of nowhere and sending them off for their final shootout. It's like a shootout, like originally is supposed to be a comparison of brand new lighting fixtures. It's like a big circle jerk of you know, new equipment basically.
Right.
And we decided to flip that on its head and take all the really old fixtures that nobody gives a crap about anymore and do a fundraiser event where we'll be donating all the proceeds to the Live Nation relief fund for the crews who are out of work right now.
Very cool. Very cool.
And it's cool because like all the donations that go to Live Nation, I think up to the first $5 million are matched by them.
Really?
So pretty much everything that we raise, as long as we're under that threshold, if they're still under that threshold, well, all those funds will be doubled.
Very cool. Very cool. And what's the date on that? Is that coming up soon?
This Sunday, the 17th.
All right. So
yeah,
this probably won't go up by then, but
that's okay.
Now somebody, I'm assuming, is getting some video of it.
Yeah. So the whole thing's going to be live streamed. We have like 4 camera angles. We have, I don't want to promise a drone, but I think we're working on having a drone feed, as well as we have scope cameras. So you can see the infrared thermal signature of the lights as we destroy them. It'll be an interesting, fun time.
Awesome. So I will I'll put a link in the description as those things kind of come out, and this won't be up before then, but you'll get a cool replay of it.
Exactly.
That you can check out for sure. Christian, man, I appreciate you coming on here.
Hey, it was really fun. I appreciate it, man.
All right, so hopefully maybe in the fall or winter, whenever we get slow, we can have you back on and kind of see
how it all shakes out.
Yeah, see how it all shakes out. And again, I appreciate you coming on. For those who don't know you, how can they find you on the interwebs?
Well, my website has all of my social media links and like YouTube and recent shows and stuff like that. Just christian-jackson.com, and you can see our upcoming live stream events, links to the YouTube channel, all that sort of stuff, and ways to get in touch too.
He didn't throw out the Patreon, but he also has a Patreon. It's super dope. And
I don't like publicizing the Patreon. I think that's got to be like the, you know,
I get it.
I feel weird advertising it.
Well, I'm not, especially in times like these. Like it's a source of it's a wealth of knowledge, especially if you're looking to get started with MA. It's a great tool. And you're not going to find it anywhere else on the internet. I can 100% guarantee that. It's to the point to where lighting manufacturers and console designers are listing this man's YouTube videos. So you're not going to find the knowledge anywhere else. But once again, Christian, I appreciate you being on, and
thank you, buddy.
I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Good luck with everything.
Perfect. Everybody take care.